Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Today, our focus is on both sides of the spectrum of life. We begin in far western Oklahoma, where work is underway to better meet the needs of an aging population.
We have more funerals than we have weddings. We've got older folks, and I'm now one of those seniors.
We visit a technology center where their focus is on younger generations in hopes of being able to help the oldest.
It's where I started and where I want to stay. We're all going to be there one day.
We take a look at how books are becoming an important part of a young child's checkup.
We know in the first 3 years of life that the majority of brain development happens.
And we will tell you how you can get involved in improving child development in Oklahoma. Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by Career Tech, a job for every Oklahoman and a workforce for every company. With additional support from the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Horizon. I'm Courtney May, filling in for Rob McClendon this week. The CDC reports that 7 out of 10 American deaths are the result of chronic illness, such as heart disease or cancer. And nearly half of U.S. adults have at least one preventable chronic illness. That makes prevention a key ingredient for healthy communities. So to look at how one rural hospital is addressing prevention, here's our Austin Moore.
Travel west on I-40, and in between the quiet places, you'll find the steady bustle of Clinton, Oklahoma. Surrounded by farming and ranching, this town has the calm, steady energy of a Sunday drive.
Small town communities are awesome.
Jody Williams is spending her retirement volunteering in Clinton.
We've got the Senior Citizen Center that's very, very active. You can find a group of 8 or 12 guys playing dominoes every day, and they've got a quilting group that's there. We've got the Route 66 Museum. We've got wonderful dining, faith-based churches on every corner, very active. But the rolling hills, the beautiful sunsets.
Another thing they have is an aging population.
We have more funerals than we have weddings. We've got older folks, and I'm now one of those seniors.
According to the Clinton Chamber of Commerce, where Oklahoma on whole has 13.2% of its population checking in at 65 or older, the number is 17.4% for this rural community, which makes healthcare a growth industry.
I'm a big believer that healthcare is best delivered locally.
Cameron Lewis is the CEO of Alliance Health Clinton, the local hospital.
Alliance Health Clinton is a 56-bed acute care facility here in western Oklahoma. We are in a rural area, but the number of services we offer is quite expansive for the size of facility we are.
It is fitting to find this facility in Clinton, which dubs itself the hub of western Oklahoma. This hospital acts as a focal point for a number of surrounding rural communities. Yet the need is still great. When you look at Oklahoma County, the state's most populous, there are roughly 40 physicians for every 10,000 people. But in Custer County, where the hospital lies, that number drops to 9 physicians for every 10,000. And in Ouachita County, which captures the southern tip of Clinton, 1.7. So before ambulances, before surgery, before chemo, and before joint replacement is prevention, which is a priority for the hospital and the community, as reflected in a new monthly meeting for seniors.
This Senior Circle program that we've developed gives us the opportunity to have a platform to educate our community members who fall in the senior citizen age range about how to live an active lifestyle.
What we really try to do is get these patients to speak up and learn more so that they can better service their own needs and know what's out there and really attach themselves to those resources when they're needed.
Pam Wire works for Alliance Home Health and says the meeting offers information to the elder population, but also something more.
They need that interaction. It's part of becoming not physically strong but emotionally strong. And I think that just providing that for them and an ability to say, hey, I know you have been in this position before, how did you get through it, is very important, almost like a support group. Having that is extremely vital in increasing their health.
And according to surgeon Tanis Fakhri, being out and about can give a glow to the golden years.
As you age, in general, you tend to be more sedentary. And that applies to males and females, especially when you're retired and you're not moving much. And so ultimately that's going to affect your lungs. You know, you're not using your lungs full capacity, especially if you're a smoker, and also your heart. So, you know, and your vessels too, because the more you use your vessels and your muscles, the better the blood flow to your organs is, and the more active and healthy your heart and lungs are.
When people are empowered with the opportunity to decide where and when and how they receive their health care, they're going to become an active participant in that decision and in that healing process, and it will, in the end, make them healthier and have a more active lifestyle.
In this part of the state, where neighbors are often separated by miles and the major hospitals of Oklahoma City can be hours away, Jody Williams is grateful for a local option.
The experts are here, and they're just a few steps away.
One of the unexpected benefits of the aging population in rural Oklahoma is the boom in healthcare jobs, which can help small-town kids find a career back home. We'll take a look at how this is happening when we return.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon with Rob McClendon. Weekly insight into your changing world.
Attracting healthcare professionals is often difficult in rural areas, but a program at a tech center in western Oklahoma hopes to change that by growing their own. Here's our Rob McClendon.
Well, Courtney, here at Western Technology Center in Burns Flat, Oklahoma, they are addressing two very distinct trends in rural America. The first being an aging population, and the second, the challenges of keeping a young workforce here in the more rural parts of our country. For high school senior Daisy Sawyer, her after-school job is not just work.
I like to help people, and I like to care for people, and I just thought it would be a good idea to help out any way I could with anybody.
Daisy is a soon-to-be graduate of Western Technology Center's nursing program and says working as a certified nursing assistant at the Veterans Center in Burns Flat is never dull and often rewarding.
And I love it. I like seeing the smiles on the residents' faces.
Something Western Technology nursing instructor Linda Bedello knows something about.
Long-term care is my passion. It's where I started and where I want to stay. We're all going to be there one day. Everybody ages, and sometimes those are the people that are forgotten, and they're the people who made us what we are, where we need to be and where we need to go.
And with long-term patients comes long-term responsibilities. And that means respecting them as if they were family.
Most people consider patients patients. I like for my students to think of them as their elders, people who have given for them to be where they're at.
And there have been more and more elderly to take care of, especially here in western Oklahoma, as the population continues to age.
In our 7 counties that we cover, we have 16 homes, and in those 16 homes, we have approximately 1,400 beds that potentially could have a patient in it that need help.
And this is where current demographic trends are working against western Oklahoma. While the elderly are needing more care, many of this area's young people are moving out, not necessarily because they want to, but because there doesn't seem to be a lot of job opportunities. A trend that Western Technology Superintendent Hoyt Lewis says his school is trying to reverse.
We need to look at growing our own, and that's what we've been doing. We need to build more buildings and have larger classrooms, but it's going to hopefully grow our own, and those students come back to Western Oklahoma as nurses, doctors in the health industry.
And it really speaks to a quality of life issue. But if you can have health care here, local, nearby, not only is it more convenient, but it saves you money. You're not going to have to go to Oklahoma City and spend the night for a doctor's appointment.
Our elderly, they spend probably 80% of their time treated and worked with by that CNA. So they have a direct impact on your loved ones. These people are your fathers, mothers, sisters, aunts. If they're spending 80% of the day with your loved ones, I think you want somebody that has been in a certification program that knows what they're doing, has proven that by high rigor and grades in the program.
In fact, the students enrolled in the Biomedical Academy at Western Technology Center are often the top students in their high school.
I want to get into the medical field, and I think that this program will help me decide where I want to go.
I think this will help me further my career in the future.
Elizabeth Stone and Kira Witten are working hard to develop schools to enter the medical field, but just as importantly, they're taking an interest with working with the elderly.
You can learn a lot from them, and I think they're just super sweet.
That's why Elizabeth and Kira took part in the senior ball, as in senior citizens.
We went and we helped the seniors get ready, some of the elderly ladies. We helped paint their nails, helped them pick out outfits. We went and we talked to them, just socialized, and we danced with them.
One part I remember was dancing with this one elderly man. He had a disease with in his hand, wouldn't stop shaking, and whenever I held his hand, my hand would shake too, and I just think that was a memorable moment.
Moments their instructor Dana Goss says is a big part of what they learn in her classroom.
I just think it's important to pay it forward. I think it's important for our generation to know that they need to do that community service, and also it just better prepares them to go to college and give back to the communities that have helped them where they are today.
And as for Daisy Sawyer, well, she hopes to become an RN and eventually a nurse practitioner. And while she'll have to leave the area to finish her education, she hopes to be back here for her career.
Yes, I'd love to come back to my hometown and see all the people and just see all the patients and catch up about their lives. There's a lot of jobs out there open and needed for us.
The bottom line, we do make a difference in people's lives, and our students' lives, and then the students, the citizens of Western Oklahoma, as well as all of the people that receive medical services.
So in a nutshell, the training here at Western Technology Center actually allows the young people that grew up all around here to stay here in Western Oklahoma.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon, connecting the dots between workforce readiness and child development. But first, roar!
It's very important that parents read to their children every day.
We all remember when we used to go to the doctor's office for that routine, if not a little scary, wellness checkup. But aside from the usual procedures, books are finding their way into the exam room thanks to a new program. Here's our Blaine Singletary with this story.
Physicians here at OU Children's Hospital in Oklahoma City aren't just looking out for their patients' physical well-being, but also their mind. It's all thanks to a program growing all over the country, and especially here in Oklahoma, called ROAR, Reach Out and Read. And their mission is simple.
It's very important that parents read to their children every day.
Dr. Marnie Dunlap is a physician at OU Children's Hospital, just one of 75 clinical locations throughout Oklahoma, getting books in the hands of thousands of young kids.
We know in the first 3 years of life that the majority of brain development happens. And reading aloud actually activates parts of the brain that we're now finding with MRI studies that other things may not. So we train providers, medical doctors, nurse practitioners, physician assistants on the importance of parents reading to their children every day and age-appropriate tips of how to do that with each individual child.
Basically, it makes reading part of the routine wellness checkup. When kids from 2 months to 5 years old come in, the doctor gives them a new book and tells the parents how to make it a part of their day. And this little book can actually clue the doctor in on some very important things.
I hand a 6-month-old a book, they grab the book, put it in their mouth. I already know that their gross motor skills are exactly where they should be. If I hand a 2-year-old a book that's upside down and they turn the book right side up, they open the book and they look back at their parent, I know that they're interacting appropriately, that they know which side of a book is right. And so I can do a lot of my developmental surveillance in the exam room just with a book.
And this isn't just a program for poor or sick kids. All children are included. But for those whose parents or parent might not be able to afford a book, Roar can get them on the right track and perhaps even break the poverty cycle. Lori Lake is the state director for Roar.
The ability to read is very, very important to being successful as an adult. And so if we can give those children the skills at a young age that they can build on at an older age, then they're going to develop those literacy skills. They're going to enter middle school being able to read. They're going to graduate from high school. There'll probably be greater chances of them going on to college.
And we're not talking about tablets. Lake tells us you just don't get the same kind of benefits from videos or ebooks.
First of all, you're, I think, enhancing the bonding experience. You're sitting there with the child, and maybe on your lap, maybe on the couch, but you're sitting there together and you're sharing. And so by doing that, you're talking, the child is responding, facial expressions, cooing, commenting, asking questions, and then you're responding to that child. That just isn't able to be replaced.
And it's that back and forth interaction that's really at the heart of this, and why it's important to read to children, even as infants. Again, Marnie Dunlap.
Most people don't think necessarily about reading to a newborn, but that's when their brains are like sponges. So they're learning, everything in their environment, and reading and vocabulary and words, even talking and singing to young kids. All of those are important things to stimulate their brain.
With 10 new Oklahoma clinics signing on in just the past few months, doctors and parents are clearly seeing the benefits. And the kids are buying in too.
The other day I had a little baby that I've seen forever, and he was about 13 months, but I was getting ready to leave the room, and he kind of reaches out to me and goes, "Book." Mom didn't even know he knew that word at that time, but he associated, he'd come to clinic, he'd already gotten 3 books, and that was what he was supposed to get when he came to the doctor.
From helping parents bond with their little ones to laying a foundation for their future, this little book can make a big difference. Again, Lori Lake.
By addressing reading at a really young age, or literacy at a really young age, we are making, I think, a difference in our society, because we're improving the future of those children who maybe wouldn't have had the advantages otherwise.
Horizon is at your fingertips. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to catch the segments you may have missed and our latest new content as it happens.
When it comes to early childhood, several important factors play a key role in that child's development: physical health, nutrition, family engagement, and one organization is working to improve the overall wellness of families through early childhood care. Joining me now in studio is the Vice President of Advocacy and Outreach for the Potts Family Foundation, Craig Knutson. Craig, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it.
Craig, I know that the Potts Family Foundation offers many different services, connecting these services with families and their children. What are some of the services that you connect families with, and how is that beneficial to them?
Because we have a corpus, we issue about $100,000 to maybe $130,000 worth of grants. And those grants go primarily to agencies, nonprofits usually, social service agencies that are providing direct services to families and children. So it could be parents of teachers, it could be Sunbeam Family Services, it could be a number of those types of agencies over the years that we funded. So what we're doing is we're identifying through our board of directors the programs that seem to be the most effective, have them issue a grant proposal, we review it, and then we grant out, like I said, somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year to those agencies. And then obviously asking for some kind of a report back that says, here's what we are able to do with those. So we are a direct provider of funding to agencies that deliver their services.
So what is the overall goal of the Potts Family Foundation, and how are you seeing families benefit from these services that you provide?
The Potts Family Foundation is dual missioned. We started out many years ago focusing on improving nonprofit capacity in this state. We have over 18,000 nonprofits, which is a lot. And we have what is called the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits, which is just celebrating its 35th year in existence, and it provides consulting and training, expertise to all the nonprofits so that they can function better. Our second mission is the early childhood piece. So ours is really enhancing the development and wellness of families pre-birth to 5. So we're interested, it's not that we're not interested in families if the kid's 6 or 7, that's got to be our focus, because really once the child gets into the K through 12 system, that's a different realm. But we feel like we can impact through state agencies and through nonprofits the services that can be delivered. So those types of services, again, could be family support services. How can parents better interact with their children on a day-to-day basis? They could be making sure that parents know the right questions to ask about childcare, because there's a world of difference between a 1-star and a 3-star rated childcare center. So those types of things. We want people to know about the literacy and numeracy programs that are available, like Reach Out and Read and others. Talking is Teaching. So our foundation, much like foundations in Tulsa and in Oklahoma City, in as much Kaiser and Tulsa, are really focusing more of our efforts now on the early childhood piece, because it's really the initial part of the workforce pipeline. If we do a really good job in 0 through 5, we're going to likely see children school ready, passing their 3rd grade reading tests, graduating high school, and hopefully going on to career tech, to college or whatever, and have higher earnings. And there have been enough studies to show that when children, especially if children of lower socioeconomic status, have been involved in programs like this for 1 or 2 years, that they actually do advance very, very nicely, both cognitively and non-cognitively.
And what are some of the main issues you see facing childhood development today, and how do you see those issues evolving over time?
There's been so much good, solid neuroscience that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago, that really speaks to the point that this isn't rocket science, but neuroscience is a science. And what they've been able to demonstrate in many cases is really, if parents will focus on expanding the opportunities and experiences for their children, talking with them, playing with them, singing with them, taking them to the zoo, taking them out in the backyard and putting up a tent. Just you pick the thing. Kids are growing, their brains are growing so rapidly in the 0 to 3, 0 to 5 category, that as long as you can keep them exercised. So this is a serve and return type of experience that kids need to have. And the more that we can interact and the more that we can make good eye contact with them, they're going to benefit from that. The fact is that the science is now demonstrating that we don't have to buy a lot for our kids. We just have to expose them to good, positive experiences. Because the brain's going to develop positively if that's the case, but it'll also develop negatively if we introduce too many adverse childhood experiences. And so we also want to talk to parents, and I say we, these programs help parents stay away from the adverse childhood experiences too, and focus more on the positive.
Now I want to talk to you more about the Oklahoma Childhood Coalition Conference.
Right.
I know the Potts Family Foundation is playing a large role in that. What will the focus of that conference be?
We're going to start off the conference with a keynote speaker from Ready Nation, or Council for a Strong America, Nancy Fishman, who's Deputy Director, and she will bring to Oklahoma City and to the state the information and knowledge that's going on in other states. What's working in other states? And it's always good to know, because sometimes we reinvent the wheel, not looking at best practices elsewhere. So she'll be able to come in and do that. So we'll do that as a keynote luncheon. We'll have the breakout sessions, and then we'll conclude with Nancy actually interacting with 4 of our state legislators who will be returning to the state capitol. Senators A.J. Griffin, David Holt, and Representatives Cindy Munson and George Young. So we'll have a panel of 4, and they will interact. They will be able to hear what actually took place in the conference, because we'll be capturing that information. And then Nancy will be moderating their thoughts and expectations as we come into FY17. It looks like it's going to be another tough year, hopefully not as bad as the last, but we want the emphasis to be, with limited resources, we want more of those resources, limited resources, directed to these types of programs that we know generate long-term benefit.
All right, well, thank you so much, Craig, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about the Potts Family Foundation, just head to okhorizon.com, where we have a link to their website under this story.
Want to see more stories like this? All our segments are streaming on our YouTube channel at Oklahoma Horizon TV.
So what's the future of farming and our food supply? Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, Rob McClendon sits down with futurist Lowell Catlett.
Now the world produces how much? The largest ever recorded in history, 70 trillion bucks.
Food, farming, and American well-being on Oklahoma's show for the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Thanks for including us as a part of your day. I'm Courtney May. Rob McClendon will be back next week. Hope to see you then.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education, with additional support from the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry.